Excitement and wild celebration as well. It saw Offaly take on Waterford, both sides seeking a first All-Ireland. Reporting on this one is John Kenny.
Offaly were back in the final, hoping to put behind them the misery of a last-minute goal which gave the title to Clare in 2008, while Waterford came into today's game unbeaten in this year's championship, and that included a win over Offaly in the group stages. Offaly, managed by former All-Star Joachim Kelly, were also looking for their first junior crown. They took an early lead courtesy of an excellent point by Arlene Watkins. Offaly went into a 3-point lead and even missed a penalty when Elaine Darmody's shot was saved before Waterford reduced the margin to 2 with a point from Karen Kelly. After that, though, the rest of the half was all Offaly and they raced into a 6-point lead, thanks in no small measure to a goal from Darmody to make up for her penalty miss. By the end of the half, Waterford were in disarray, and Tina Hannon's score helped Offaly into a 10-point half-time lead, 111 to 4 points. But Waterford hit back early in the second half. Anya Ling put over a point, and they then scored their first goal of the contest, and a good finish it was too from Patricia Jackman, hammering the ball past Offaly keeper Audrey Kennedy. But with the margin now down to 6, Offaly settled from the Waterford blitz, and Darmody's point per side 7 in front. 2 goals in a minute then killed off any thoughts of a Waterford comeback. The first came when Siobhan Flannery swiveled and turned before firing a shot past Waterford keeper and defender. The second goal, barely 60 seconds later, saw Arlene Watkins get a run in on goal, and she fairly hammered it past Aisling O'Brien in the Waterford goal. Those 2 points put an end to Waterford's dreams of a title, although they did manage a consolation goal through Anya Ling after being set up by Jackman. Offaly then took the Gala Junior Camoige title for the first time. Delight for Joachim Kelly as his side won 3-14 to Waterford's 2-8. Disappointment for Waterford manager Andy Maloney, but joy for Offaly captain Marion Crean.
Congratulations to our player of the match, Elaine Darmody. Well, Elaine, Joachim said before that match that you came here to win, and it looked like that's exactly how you played from the very start.
I suppose after last year, there was so much hurt there. Last minute goal to lose, so coming up, all we thought about was winning. Someone said to me during the week in work to visualise winning, so I suppose that went through the whole team.
I suppose we just had the half time, we had to come in and review everything, and the second half we were proud of the way the girls performed. You know, they came from being 10 points down, I suppose, to come back within 6. And I suppose 2 goals against the run of play kind of buried our title hopes, you know.
Well, I suppose it does make up for that awful pain of last year for Offaly, Emer.
Yeah, they had a crushing defeat last year in the last dying moments of injury time with a goal, so it was heartbreaking. I was watching it myself there last year. And, you know, this is their first ever All-Ireland title, so they'll be so thrilled. They get a great reception back in Offaly. And you know, I don't think there was any other scenario in their minds coming into this game today. They had been beaten by Waterford by 13 points earlier in the championship, but obviously they just dismissed that today because they led from the start and they dominated all over the field, and they were always in control, never looked shaken, never looked panicked or under pressure, and they were deserved winners in the end.
But Tracy, you feel we should put in context where Waterford are coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said earlier, like I suppose I can emulate what, you know, that Waterford are like Kilkenny today, like basically the first time in an All-Ireland final. Like, it's a huge task, and you know, there's an awful lot of side shows that are going on, and you know, for a young player coming up, like a majority of them girls, like, you know, this is their launch pad for their camogie careers as such. And like, I have to say that Anya Ling was outstanding today, and Patricia Jackman, they were, you know, they really stood up to the test. And I have to say in the second half that they showed great character to actually come back. And, you know, I think there was a 5-point deficit at one stage, was there, Therese, between the two? And, you know, when we thought at half-time that it was going to be a railroad. So, you know, they'd have to take heart from that. Like, I know tonight there's bitter disappointment, and, you know, they have to go through that as well. But, you know, I can see a bright future for Waterford there, and I'm sure Andy Maloney, if he stays around, he will you know, give them the knowledge of getting back again and back on the winning trail again.
Goals, of course, win matches, and Offaly got 3 of them to raise today.
They did, yes, yeah, but you know, 1 to 15, they had a complete set as well. I mean, I must add that in, but certainly, yes, the goals were the difference. And this goal came from a player of the match we just saw there, Elaine Darmody. Great catch out in front of Sally O'Grady. Keeps going, just goal in her mind. and even though she falls as she hits it, was able to palm it into the back of the net. Superb from her there, and you know, that was really the launching pad for Offaly. Here Tina Hanlon crosses a great ball, and again, when Offaly got the ball, they just had goal in their mind all the time, and it is Siobhan Flannery here who puts the finishing touches to that. And at this stage, you know, it was Offaly's day, there was no denying it, but you know, they weren't finished yet, and only 3 minutes later the killer blow came when Arlene Watkins ran onto a great ball, and here she is, and I think that was one of the best goals we'd seen in Croke Park today. Brilliant strike just into the corner, and really, you know, the keeper had no chance at all of stopping that.
And no coming back from it really for Waterford after that.
Oh, there was no coming back, but as Tracy said there, you know, it was the first time. Remember their hurlers last year in the All-Ireland final? You know, it's a difficult pill to swallow, but I think there's nobody would have lived with that Offaly team today. Even if Waterford had another 75% in them, I still think they couldn't have beaten that Offaly team today.
Looking back at the year in general, Emer, as a Dublin player, you had frustrations, had you, with the championship? apart from the obvious ones.
Obvious ones, losing.
But in terms of structure, you were saying.
I feel as a player, I was injured obviously for a lot of the year, but it's great as a player to be playing all the time. And you know, clubs in Dublin, I think our matches stop when the inter-county scene is ongoing. And so this year, with the structure change to 2 groups, we had 3 games each, and it was quite frustrating. You know, you'd play one game, and we had a 4-week break then to our next game. Then we had a 2 to 3 week break to the final game, and it's hard to keep momentum as well. I mean, at least if you're playing week in, week out, if you have a loss, you can, you know, correct it the following week, and then if you win, you can try and build on it. But it's hard. I mean, we were in the group with Kilkenny and Cork, and both those teams got to the final today. So I find that the more games you play, the better, and the more you can improve. It's quicker you can improve on it when you have more games.
Therese, what would you say to that?
Yes, I suppose I would have been a fan of last year's structure days, you know, where it was one group and everybody was playing almost every week in succession. I just thought that was a better format. I suppose, you know, to me, the more games you have and the more games the public and the younger players can see, and I would prefer that format. But I suppose, look, talking about this year's championship, you know, it wasn't predictable, and that has to be good for Camoige. At the beginning of the year we said, OK, Cork might be back, but we were saying which one of Wexford, Galway, Tipperary and Kilkenny will be with them, and you know, maybe we mightn't have picked Kilkenny, so credit to them for getting there, and you know, we'll see them back again next year.
All right, OK, well now we're going to boldly pick the Camogie Team of the Year for 2009, and the girls are going to take it in groups of 5 each. So we're asking you, Tracy, to go for your selection, your team selection of 1 to 5, first of all. So goalkeeper to begin with.
Well, I suppose in fairness, after today's performance, Aoife Murray will have to name her at number 1. She was outstanding there between the posts. And number 2, I went with a Kilkenny player who was outstanding throughout the year, worked tirelessly, and actually between attacking forward and launching attacks, I went with Jackie Frisbee. She was outstanding at cornerback. Again, throughout the year, I picked number 3, Katrina Foley, who today outshone and was as good as any player I've seen throughout the year.
Right. And
on the other corner, I went with one of the current dual players, Irina Buckley, who will be playing in her Football All-Ireland in 2 weeks' time, which is a fantastic achievement for any player and any athlete. So well done to Irina. And then out onto my half-back line, I actually went for a Galway girl. I went for Anne-Marie Hayes, who was outstanding in the semi-finals and throughout the year, who's one of the great stalwarts of Galway.
All right. Emer, you might pick it up then, centre half-back.
Yeah, at number 6, no surprise, we've Mary O'Connor. We picked her. It's just a great player. It always is, every year. We get so used to her being so consistent. And at number 7, Breege Corkery. Now, Breege, of course, won't be insulted by putting in at wing-back because she can play anywhere. She's the most versatile player, I think, playing in Camogie today. In midfield, there's a lot of competition in midfield, but we went with Anne Dalton, number 8. As I just mentioned, you know, Kate Kelly for Wexford was outstanding, and Deirdre Murphy from Clare. And at number 9, Orla Cotter, such a young player, but such a big future ahead of her in the game. And again, Colette Dormer, though, you know, ran her close, and also Ciara Lucy for Dublin had a great season. And then in at number 10, Therese Marr played most of the season in centre forward, but we named her in here at wing forward. She just had the game of her life. It's in the semi-final, and she's been consistent all this season and in every year in the last few years.
OK, Therese. The other 5 lucky enough to make the team.
Yes,
Centre
I
forward.
suppose my own county comes into play here, but nobody will blame us for picking, I think, Jim O'Connor in the number 11 jersey. Jim, I suppose, she's so strong on the ball. We've seen several instances of her all year. She leads the Cork attack from centre forward. Moving on to the number 12 position, it's one of the new kids on the block this year, and Downey, I think, will be delighted to see Katie Power being recognised in the number 12 shirt. And then moving into the full forward line, Wexford got the call up. We felt Rosemary Breen was one of Wexford's top players this year, and we placed her at corner forward. And while Tipperary didn't make the semi-finals of the All-Ireland Championship, one of their top scorers, indeed one of their great players down through the years, has been Claire Grogan, and great free taker as well, invaluable to Tipperary. And the number 15 jersey, and again, we had a lot of contenders for all of these positions, but unfortunately just one player stepped up to the plate, and it was a player who did well for Cork today. She's top scored, and in fact, with her, Rachel Maloney is the recipient, and with her 7 points today, she's actually become the top scorer of the championship. She's pipped Aisling Connolly by 1 point for that, so I think well deserved there for Rachel.
OK, well done to all 15 who made the team in the minor. And of course, there will be top-class previews on the road to Croker on Friday night at 7 o'clock. That's all to come, but let's turn our attention back to this afternoon in Croke Park. We're joined by Cyril Farrell and Paul Flynn for their thoughts on the All-Ireland Under-21 hurling final. Now, it sees the reigning champions Kilkenny take on a Clare team that